Hello guys, it's Hyper here, and honestly, I thought I would never make a video like this, but this has been weighing on my mind too much, and I figured I might as well get it out there, because this is something I've been planning for quite a long while now, but I've had immense difficulties with doing so, because it's really hard to scale a character like the one I've created, but honestly, I think I've got it down to a fine detail now. For those curious out there, this What If is about the first ever character I have created, and his name is Solus. Now, I do have art of him, but honestly, it's furry arts, and I don't know how well the anime community would really react to that. But I'm just going to give a small breakdown of Solus and his abilities, as well as a little bit of his backstory. Now, Solus, in technicality, is a fusion. He is the culmination of 7 souls. 2 of those various souls being the demon prince of hell, Adam, and the angel princess of heaven, Evelyn. If you can see the reference there, that is in the Bible reference, in Adam and Eve. Basically, a yin yang kind of deal where one is darkness and one is light. And essentially, what Solus is the epitome of balance. He is basically someone that is literally balance incarnate. Now, that is really hard to scale because in his own universe, every villain starting out is universal level of power, meaning that if Kid Goku were to be tossed into the same storyline Solus comes from, it would not last a week. Bro would get mind controlled within the first day, maybe, because of his power. Yes, you heard me right, mind control. But I'm not going to step into spoil level territory for my storyline. If you're interested in hearing or reading the storyline, I will make a video about it. Maybe a little log post or whatever. Maybe something for you to read, maybe something for you to watch. I'm still deciding on what to turn it into. But regardless, the backdrop of Solus is he was really hard to balance into the Dragon Ball storyline. And the main reason for that is his power scaling mechanic. It is percentage based. And he has many ways he can gain power. One of those literally being just existing. Yes, that is right. He gains a 1% power boost every single day by just existing. Now, frankly, to balance this out, he does start off with a power level of 2. Yes, 2. Literally the level of a human in your average Dragon Ball episode. And that's literally just to balance it out, but over the years, that power level of 2 could easily turn into a power level of 2 million. Which is really hard to power scale properly when you have a character that has percentage-based power. And so it was really difficult to place him into a specific saga of Dragon Ball, so I decided on around the ending of the Namek Saga, because by that point of time, everyone is around the tens of millions of power in terms of scaling. I believe Frieza is 160 million or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just a rough estimate. So a power level of 2 wouldn't really mean that much during that level of saga. So that's where I want to personally start the What If from. Granted, there a lot of arcs within this What If will be changed, so a little bit of an extra warning if you are a sourpuss that doesn't like certain arcs within the original Dragon Ball storyline being edited. You have come to the absolute wrong place to watch a video on. Because this is a what if scenario. It's completely fictional and hypothetical. So all the shit that you like is going to likely be different. Now, enough with the babbling. Let me start on with the scenario. The day starts out, it's a little bit after Kami gets revived, since Piccolo gets revived by the Dragon Balls, so it's a little bit before the fight with Frieza, the initial fight with Frieza anyway. A portal opens in the sky above the lookout. Kami looks at it with a mixture of fear and seriousness. This is a one in a lifetime cosmic event that has honestly never happened before. And Kami is really scared. Well, someone out there, a boundless entity, decides to pluck their most favorite individual from the original series into a different series just to see how they'd adapt. Now, don't worry, they'll return everything back to normal once it's all over. They're just a little curious what will happen. So the portal opens up and out falls a single gray furred individual that plummets right in front of Kami and is unconscious. Kami has no idea what to do with this individual, but he looks up at the portal and it's gone. It has disappeared the instant Solace went through it. And he's just sitting there, unconscious. Kami doesn't really know what to do, but he can feel a sort of power within Solace. He can feel something godly within him. He doesn't quite know what it is, but something about this individual, this mysterious figure, does not seem mortal at all. But regardless of that, the events of the Namek Saga practically go the same, or basically the same as normal. Goku defeats Frieza, everyone escapes Namek before it explodes, Goku gets sent to Yardrat and trains there. Basically the same things happen. And by the time that Goku is training on Yardrat, Solace manages to wake up from his slumber. The moment he does, Kami immediately greets him and asks him who he is and what he's doing here. And Solace replies that he doesn't quite know. The only thing he remembers exactly is his own name, which he gives to Kami quite respectively, in fact. And Kami is at a loss for words. He's never really seen an individual like this. They seem to have a strange case of amnesia, which isn't really fitting of someone who feels like they have a godly presence to them. But it's a very weak godly presence. It's almost like it's been locked away, maybe on purpose or intentionally. Who knows? But Kami can feel the presence and decides to let Solace stay on the lookout until they gain their bearings a little bit. And Solace agrees with this proposal. So the events up to when Frieza gets gathered, Mecha Frieza happens, Trunks comes back to this timeline. Most of that stays the same. I know it's a little bit boring, but something interesting does end up happening during those events. The moment Trunks travels through time and ends up in the present, Solace gets a tiny little feeling in the back of his head. And while he's wandering around the lookout for a little bit, he spots the time chamber. And looking at the door, the entrance to it, he feels a certain kinship to it for some reason. He doesn't know why he feels this way, but for some reason it feels like the time chamber is calling to him somehow. He doesn't quite enter it. I'm not going to allow that this early. But that feeling is there, and if you want me to explain this, this is because one of the souls that were, combined, the soul of the Princess of Heaven, Evelyn, had time-based abilities. This is why Solace feels a connection to the Room of Spirit and Time, is because that time-based connection is slipping through very subtly, but it's there. He doesn't quite have the ability to, use time-based magic or anything of that sort. He just has that connection that feels weird, but almost kinship. Almost if, like, the room itself was like a sibling of sorts. But Solus ignores it, but he reluctantly, or almost kind of, just ends up in front of the room at all times. And Kami notices this and notices that Solus is constantly always near the door to the room. It's almost as if he's attracted but doesn't want to go in because he's afraid or something. But then we pan back to the fight between Trunks and Frieza. Trunks decimates Mecha Frieza and King Cold and waits for Goku to basically arrive. And he tells him about the androids, the stuff with the heart medicine, and Goku's informed. He knows he needs to train for 3 years for the androids, and so most of that scenario goes in normal. But this time, when Goku goes up to the lookout to decide to train for a bit, he spots Kami and Solus, who is still in front of the door to the Room of Spirit and Time. Now, Goku respectively asks Kami about Solus, and it's like, who's this? What are they doing here? And Kami tells mostly Goku what he needs to know. He doesn't exactly tell Goku that Solus has a godly presence to them that seems locked away. Kami just tells him, oh, that's Solus, and he kind of just arrived here on his own. It's very mysterious, and Kami still is trying to understand it, but he tells Goku moderately the truth to an extent. And Goku says, oh wow, and Goku looks over to Solus and notices he doesn't really have that much power to him. But considering the backstory, maybe he was possibly sent here for a reason. And Goku goes over to Solus and tries to make friends with him. And Solus at first doesn't really notice Goku until Goku puts a hand on his shoulder to where Solus finally snaps out of that trance-like state and meets Goku for the first time. And Solus has a neutral standpoint of Goku at first. He doesn't mind Goku's ambition. He hears Goku needs to train for a bit. And surprisingly, Goku asks Solus if he wants to spar. And Solus looks over at Goku and bluntly asks him, what's a spar? And Goku is immediately gobsmacked and realizes that Solus doesn't exactly know the concept of training. And Goku doesn't really have the time to explain it right now. And he figures this is probably just amnesia talking. Other than that, or is this Solus is just not the warrior type, which is fine. Solus can always just be his friend. So instead, Goku just shuts his mouth, doesn't really explain this. Let's say, never mind about that. I'm just gonna go inside here. Will you be fine out here? And Solus says, yeah, and just good luck in there. It feels like you might need it. And Goku takes that kind of information that hurts, so Goku trains up at the lookout for a little bit. He doesn't necessarily go inside the Room of Spirit and Time, because I honestly don't remember if that happens or not. Correct me if I'm wrong if it does. But regardless, if it does, it happens. If it doesn't, still, everything goes as original. But something's different at time. Around maybe a month before the android's initial attack, Solus notices something about Goku. he feels Goku's presence is slightly weaker than it usually is, and Solace goes up to Goku one day and surprisingly asks him if he feels fine, if he feels okay. And Goku blinks at Solace and is like, yeah, he feels fine. In fact, he feels pretty good even. And Solace is like, are you sure? You kind of seem like you're suffering for something or whatever. I can sense your presence kind of fading slightly. It's like, are you sure you're not like exhausted or something? It's like Goku thinks on it for a moment and then he's reminded back to the moment when Trunks warned him about the heart virus. And he pieces something together. He pieces that Solace senses that the heart virus is festering within him and is growing, and it's like it reminds Goku that he needs to take the medicine. So Goku doesn't bother telling Solace this. He just is like, yeah, maybe I do feel a little bit weak. Maybe I'll take a little break for a while. And he flies back home, takes the heart medicine. The heart virus is now cured thanks to Solace's very surprising. I forget the word. Prophecy or whatever. I forget the exact word. But regardless, Solace basically warned Goku of the heart virus early, and so that's not really going to be a thing anymore. So now we skip ahead to the moment where Android 19 and 20 attack. And the moment they do, the Z Fighters are on immediate alert. Goku is the first one to head over there. And it's Android 19 and 20 that are attacking. And immediately Goku tries to pick a fight with Android 19. Now this time around, since Goku doesn't have the heart virus anymore, he isn't being affected by it, so he manages to defeat Android 20 before they could steal any more energy from him. And the moment that Android 20 basically gets defeated, Vegeta arrives, says he's going to take care of everything, goes Super Saiyan, shows off his new Super Saiyan form to Goku, and Goku is impressed, and Vegeta completely decimates Android 19, rips his arms off, crushes his head, and Android 19 has been destroyed, and Gero completely freaks out and runs away as fast as possible. He even uses a key blast to make a smoke screen to get away because he knows the Z Fighters can't sense his presence. And instead of trying to steal some energy, he just runs away as much as he can. Sadly, his footsteps, due to Piccolo's immense hearing, are still heard, and basically he still gets tracked down to his laboratory, and Dr. Gero hastily tries to activate the androids, but knows it's a bad idea. So this time around, since he believes that the Z Fighters have completely lost his trail, he decides to do some extra programming on the twins. And basically, by the time the Z Fighters do end up finding the laboratory, Dr. Gero had already managed to get rid of the. What is the word again? The rebellious nature of androids 17 and 18. And he activates them a little bit later than normal. But the good change in the storyline is the two androids don't kill Gero. They spot the Z Fighters, and amongst the crowd is Goku. Since he didn't fall to the heart virus, Goku's able to join them in this fight. And it basically goes kind of the same as it does originally, where the androids kind of dog walk the Z Fighters. Vegeta fights 18, gets his arm broken, and they toy around with the Z Fighters more so than the original. They specifically don't instantly target Goku. They beat his friends to the brink of death just to make him suffer, to see them wallow and slowly die. And Goku is furious, but he knows he has no chance of defeating the androids. So reluctantly, he grabs everyone and uses instant transmission to retreat. And during this moment, androids 17 and 18 turn to Jiro. They both smile and, pop goes the weasel. His head is poof, gone. Jiro's dead because he didn't really get rid of that rebellious nature. They just decided to fake allegiance until the timing was right. So now the androids go off, do their own thing, and everyone's recovering on the lookout now. And Solus notices this, and it's like he turns over to Goku and says, "Why didn't you just instantly finish them off while you had the chance?" And Goku's just like, "I just wanted to test the power and everything." And that's when Solus surprisingly slaps Goku across the face and is like, "You do realize her actions could have caused the death of literally everyone, right?" And now Solus is starting to see Goku in a little bit of a negative light. He has a little bit of a negative disposition of Goku, because now he sees Goku as kind of cocky and arrogant and a little bit too much of a battle junkie. And he tells this to Goku's face. He lets his feelings be known, and Goku takes Solus's words to heart. For once, he doesn't really outright ignore them. He tells Solus that's kind of just how he is, but he does understand where he's coming from. So this time around, Solus gives Goku a little different outlook on the scenario, and now they all decide on what they should do. During this moment, the future version of Cell has begun to rampage, but not as much as the original. This version of Cell has decided not to attack any humans, because the moment he arrived in this timeline, he felt something off. He felt his presence, a pressure that scared him to death. And so Cell decides to play it extra cautious this time around. He goes over to the laboratory where he knows his present counterpart is still incubating. He goes underground, finds it still intact since the Z-Fighters never decimated that area. And Cell, knowing he'll get great power from this, decides to absorb his present self. He smashes the tube his present self is growing in, and he uses his tail to suck up every ounce of DNA and energy his present self has, making him the same strength as if he would have absorbed a single android. Basically, semi-perfect Cell level of power while still being imperfect Cell. And so Cell with the enough strength to achieve perfection decides to just wait, because he can still feel that presence and pressure. What he doesn't know is that presence and pressure is Solus. Now, during the long 3-year span, Solus has gone from a power level of 2 to around 2 million, so around maybe second or third form Frieza, which is I believe that's an okay amount. Given percentage-based scaling, I believe if if you get 1% every day for 3 years straight, going from a power level of 2 to 2 million is at least feasible, especially if since that's not the only way souls can gain a percentage worth of power. I'm just saying from a baseline standpoint, he would have a power level of 2 million by now, and this has not gone unnoticed. Goku has noticed Solus's growth alongside Kami, who has reluctantly decided to fuse with Piccolo. So yeah, Kami has fused with Piccolo a little bit earlier than normal. So that's a done deal, but they've noticed Solus's growth and the fused warrior Piccolo from Kami's memories and Kami talking to him inside mentally, because apparently that's a thing they do. Piccolo now knows of Solus's godly nature and how he really doesn't exude a mortal like essence of sorts. And this triggers something deep within Piccolo. He believes Solus is, if left unchecked, could end up being a threat that not even the multiverse itself could even be able to comprehend. Although he's not necessarily wrong, but at this current state of being, any one of the Z-Fighters could take on Solus if they really needed to, but given his seemingly neutral disposition, they don't really perceive him as a threat currently, but maybe long down the lines, there could be a little bit of something that might end up happening. But regardless of the situation, we skip forward to where everyone trains in the hyperbolic time chamber, and this time around, Solus seeing Cell, he knows Cell that exists, he can feel Cell out there, because the moment Cell traveled back in time, Solus felt that little feeling in the back of his mind, that same connection that tied him to the room of spirit and time. He doesn't know why he feels this, but he can feel this connection, this kinship, and he wants to prepare himself physically and mentally just in case this entity he feels is a threat to his existence. And so this time around, it's a little bit different. So the events where they get Dende and everything goes normal. The pairings are normal. Goku and Gohan enter the time chamber, then Vegeta and Trunks. And then the next people to enter the time chamber is Goku and Solus. Moderately because Goku's curious and he does want to teach Solus martial arts. And Solus begrudgingly does accept this time because he feels like he needs to learn this. He feels like if he at least doesn't intervene, that the Z-Fighters won't be able to handle whatever threat he feels, he senses. And so Goku enters the room with Solus, and there's not really any kind of training. They only really kind of have like half of a day to really do much. But during the moment that they are in the hyperbolic time chamber, Goku does notice Solus's immense growth and potential, and the way that he basically immediately learns martial arts. He's a S-class fighter. And this is one of Solus's hidden abilities. He has the ability to learn practically any technique very quickly. If Whis were to teach him how to use Ultra Instinct, for example, he would learn it within a month's time. That's how smart he is. That's how good he is at adapting and learning techniques. But regardless, Solus learns martial arts, and within the moments Goku does master Super Saiyan, he's on the cusp of Super Saiyan 2, but isn't quite there yet. And at this point of time, I would say, given that it's half a day, so it's like 6 months, give or take, I would say Solus goes from a power level of 2 million to a power level of 20 million, or somewhere around that ballpark. He only gains a 10 times boost since he only got 100%, maybe, give or take. But regardless of that fact, that's gonna put Solus at a power level of 20 million by the time he exits the time chamber, which is like maybe around Final Form Frieza at like baseline. So it's not too powerful, but he at least knows how to fight now, so I guess it's good. So now the Z Fighters go out and try to find the androids, and they happen upon them on a small island. Now, this island was kind of not really small, it was kind of big, but regardless, they brought to that same little island, and everyone begins to fight the androids. And this is the moment when Cell strikes. Using his superior power, Cell manages to invade the fight and blind everyone with a solar beam or solar flare. And during the moment of distraction, he manages to absorb 17 and 18, achieving perfection. Now, he was a little bit quicker on this time because that presence still scares him. Also, since I didn't really mention it, 16 has not been activated during this time frame, so he's not really in the scenario or storyline. I decided to cut him out because I feel like he wouldn't really advance the story that much. Maybe I could change it to where, like, he does get activated, but only after the saga. So, yeah, maybe I'll end up doing that. But regardless, Cell achieves perfection, and his power is immense. It's basically super perfect level of strength. You know, since Imperfect Cell was basically semi-perfect Cell level, I figured this would be a good margin to put him as, since, you know, he also absorbed his present self as well, took all of his DNA and power just to prepare himself. And Cell, this time around, decides he's not really gonna toy around with everyone, since he still senses that power and pressure. Solus didn't really come with them with Cell to defeat the androids. He just remained on the lookout for now to like watch over. He figured out how to do the same thing Kami does when it came to seeing everything on the lookout. So that's what Solus is doing right now. But Perfect Cell doesn't know about Solus. He just looks over at everyone and decides, you know, I see how strong you guys have gotten, and it's really impressive. So I want to host the Cell Games. and he decides this time around that the Cell Games will happen in a month from now. He gives them a month's worth to prepare because mentally he wants to prepare himself as well. So, with the month given to them, everyone heads back to the lookout. Cell spends a few days making the arena. So sometimes there was a little green square, maybe a circle. Some points of the edges there was a little triangle, but it took him a while to make it perfect. But eventually the arena ended up being perfect. It was a little bit bigger than the normal arena because Cell wanted to really prepare himself. So Cell decided to make the arena double the size around that kind of point. So anyway, during the moment when Cell makes the arena, everyone began preparing and training some more in the Room of Spirit and Time. And during this moment, since Cell gave them a month, it was, I would say it's long enough for most of the Saiyans to learn Super Saiyan 2. So like now Vegeta, Trunks, Gohan, and Goku now have Super Saiyan 2. Now where's Solus in terms of power scaling? Did he join them in the Room of Spirit of Time? Yes, he joined someone in terms of training, and it was no one other than Piccolo. This time around, in order to be alone with him and talk with him, Piccolo reluctantly decided to be be put into the spirit room with Solus. So now, the moment the two enter the room of spirit and time, Piccolo decides to have a chat with Solus, and it's like, "Are you sure you don't know who you are?" And Solus says, "Well, yeah. Like I said, all I know is my own name." And Piccolo can sense the sincerity in his voice, and then it's like, he's trying to decide if he should let Solus know if he's not mortal or if he is this godlike being. But reluctantly, he decides to keep the information to himself because he feels like if he tells Solus, then it might be bad for everyone around them. So instead, Piccolo just decides to train with Solus because at the end of the day, he believes if he gets to know Solus and his patterns, the way he fights, if Solus ends up, I don't know, maybe betraying everyone for some weird reason or something, that maybe Piccolo would be able to subdue him or something. But regardless, by the end of everything, everyone is around the same level of power, even Solus. Everyone is Super Saiyan 2 levels of strength, and yeah, that even includes Solus, since he decided to train a little bit longer this time around, because he views Perfect Cell as a threat not only to him but the other people around, and it's moderately because of Goku's actions as well. He believes that just in case Goku has that same sort of cockiness to him, that he should at least join in the fight just in case. It's like a good, decent measure. But he still thinks that everyone should be able to handle Cell. And so, since that only lasted maybe a week or two, everyone decides to just chill out for a little bit, wait for the Cell games to begin. And so the month passes by. The Cell games have begun. Everyone lines up in front of the arena, and Cell looks at Solus. His eyes immediately lock onto him, and he feels that presence. He feels that pressure exuding. It's locked away, but it's there. And Cell can see, he can feel what Solus really is. the monster they really are. And Cell can tell if he were to fight Solus right now, if Cell didn't immediately go to full strength, he would lose. That's how Cell feels right now. So instead, to better his own strength, he wants to ensure Solus goes last. So he asks the first fighter to step up. And the first fighters to step up is the mighty Hercule, who steps up to the arena and decides to challenge Cell. Everyone is left baffled by this experience, and Hercule enters his quote unquote Super Hercule form, and he starts the fight with Cell. He lands a punch, and uh, it did nothing. Cell just backhands Hercule into the mountain, and yet Hercule is done for. But then no, wait, Hercule comes back a moment later, and now Ultra Instinct Hercule challenges for supremacy. And Cell finds the bullshit really annoying, and he pimps up Hercule into next Saturday. Enough of the, enough of me going off course here. For real this time, Goku now steps up to fight Cell, and he paces himself at first, but eventually goes into Super Saiyan 2. The fight is well versed out, but eventually, just like the normal storyline, Goku ends up just conceding, and he gives Gohan the turn next. Now, Gohan in this scenario here is a little bit less cocky than original, and he knows if he doesn't defeat Cell right now, it's likely Cell will destroy everyone. So he decides to take things seriously, immediately going to Super Saiyan 2 and fighting Cell, who is keeping up with Gohan at this point. Now, given Gohan is kind of the strongest person available right now, but we're talking about a Cell that's at super perfect Cell level, so it's kind of an even battle, I would say. It goes up to the point where Gohan feels like he isn't really doing anything to Cell, so Cell just decides enough is enough. He just wants to move on to the next fighter. And he feels now he's ready for Solus. He feels like he's gained enough strength and perseverance to handle that mysterious pressure. So now the battle begins. It's Solus versus Cell. And Solus immediately goes to his full power. And Cell is shocked. Solus is kind of stronger than Gohan. Just a small fraction. Either that or he feels like he could be, but maybe just it's weaker than he expected. So Cell takes this lightly, and surprisingly, Solus has kind of an easy time with Cell, really. Like, Cell is kind of struggling to land hits occasionally due to Solus's superior martial art prowess. Like, he's dodging when he really should have gotten a hit in certain aspects, and it's like, Cell is starting to have a rough time against Solus, and he's starting to exhaust himself, and it's like, a small, subtle look of desperation inches across his face, and everyone but Solus seizes it. Everyone then decides that they should get rid of Cell right now, because he looks like he's about to blow up the planet. So everyone then surprisingly rushes in. We have Vegeta, Trunks, Gohan, and Goku all in Super Saiyan 2. charging their most destructive Keyblades and launching them all at Cell at once, catching him off guard, incinerating the bio android down to the last molecule. There was nothing left anymore. The Z Fighters saw his desperation and decided to act, which left Solus surprised. This is a very stark difference from the original timeline. But due to his influence, the Z Fighters knew they had to end things quick. There was no waiting, no taking turns, no playing any games. And Solus is proud of them for taking such an action. He thinks back to his previous stature on everyone and thinks, you know, maybe they're not as bad as he believes they are. So the Cell Games ends kind of abruptly and very quickly, might I add. And I like to think it's because of Solus's influence. Like, he berated everyone for being cocky and not taking things seriously, and during the times of training, they took those words to heart. They decided that, yeah, we shouldn't be like this. We gotta make sure we end this guy before he ends us all. And so that's what happened. So the Cell arc practically ends with everyone banding together and defeating Cell. And they even double check, since that was the future version of Cell according to Trunks. So they double check Jiro's lab. They notice the present Cell is gone, so likely he's been dealt with prior to the Cell games. So no, there's no longer a threat there. So everything returns back to normal. Everyone returns to the daily life. Trunks prepares to return to the future, but before he do, he looks over to Solus and glances over him for a moment. He can feel that same feeling that Cell felt about him. And this is due to Trunks and Cell's exposure to the time stream. And the reason for this being is because Evelyn, once again, like I mentioned before, her special power was time-based. She could travel through time. She could prevent her own death if she really needed to. That was her special power. Granted, it was passed down from her mother, Hera, but still. She had that power, and that power technically is within Solus. And the reason why he feels the kinship to the hyperbolic time chamber and to Trunks and to Cell is because they have that essence of the time stream through them. He can feel that connection. He can feel the time-based essence exuding from them. And since they had exposure to that time stream as well, Trunks and Cell could feel Solus's true self. Kind of, to an extent. It was still deeply locked away, but Trunks and Cell, along with Piccolo, now are the only people that realize who Solus kinda really is. They can feel that godhood, that godly presence that's locked away and hidden. But they don't really vocalize that. They keep that to themselves. So Trunks goes back to his timeline. He doesn't really tell everyone what he thinks. He just goes back to his timeline, says goodbye to everyone, and it's like everything returns back to normal. And now we skip over to like before the World Martial Arts Tournament. Solus is hanging over at the lookout, and Goku is just training there by himself, with no one really other there, and his sparring partner Goku has tried to make Solus train with him or spar with him, but Solus has declined his advances because he feels like he doesn't really need to do such a thing. Now, by this point in time, Solus hasn't really caught up to anyone anymore. Everyone is now beyond Solus. They're in like the hundreds of billions, almost trillions, maybe in terms of power level. That's a rough ballpark, personally, but I believe that Goku is in the 100 billions, or maybe hitting the trillion mark. But regardless, Solus is still at a power level of around maybe 20 billion, maybe 30 billion, give or take. He's still kind of catching up, but that percentage based power scaling doesn't really do much for him if he doesn't really train it that well. So kind of see where I'm going off with. I'm trying to nerf him as much as possible, trying to ensure he isn't broken. But maybe things will change, maybe not, who knows. But anyway, Goku tells Solus about the World Martial Arts Tournament. It's like, he knows the Cell Games wasn't really an official tournament, and he wants to invite Solus to at least watch the tournament. He doesn't need to participate in it. He can just observe, see how a tournament really is officially held. It's nothing high stakes like the Cell Games or anything, just something casual, some form of entertainment. And Solus, he agrees with the idea and decides he's gonna watch. He's not gonna participate, he's gonna watch. So then the World Martial Arts Tournament appears, and in the crowd is Solus, and this time around, Piccolo is in the crowd as well. Unlike the original, this time around he decides not to participate because he's wary of Solus. He wants to keep track of him. But then Piccolo spots two other individuals in the crowd, two that were participating. This is Kibito and Kaioshin. And he knows who they are. Kami can mentally tell them these two gods' positions. Supreme Kais. One being the creator, and one being the attendant. Or at least maybe supervised, but who knows. Basically just higher ups. But Piccolo isn't the only one to notice their presence. Solus is as well. Solus looks over to Kibito and Kaioshin, and that feeling, that kinship, rises to the surface again. He doesn't know why he feels this way, but for some reason he feels that kinship, that connection. And now we get on to the tournament. The first match is Spopovich versus Videl. Now, during the moments Gohan and Videl have kind of gotten together, she has learned of his true identity as the Saiyaman. That all happened and stuff. She kind of knows how to use Ki, kind of doesn't at the same time. Also, if you're wondering, Goten was born during this time frame. It's just he wasn't as deeply trained as the original. So he's around the same level as Kid Trunks in this time frame. And yes, Trunks was also born, if I also forgot to include that. That is my fault. But regardless, the first match begins, and Spopovich absolutely decimates Videl, putting her on the brink of death, but doesn't outright kill her. And so the match ends in an incapacitation, And then the next match proceeds. And it's the same matchup as the original. It's Kibito versus Gohan. And Kibito asks Gohan to show him his true power, which Gohan obliges and shows Kibito Kai Super Saiyan 3. You heard me right. During the time frame, thanks to Solus's influence, Goku, Gohan, Vegeta have both achieved baseline Super Saiyan 3. Moderately because they don't want Solus to leap ahead of them, even if he doesn't really train that much, but it should be fine. They still decided to prepare just to show off, show them how they've been training and the fruits of their training, but regardless, it's a little stark difference, and Kibito and Kaioshin are taken aback by the power exuding from Gohan. But he loses that power practically instantly because he explains to Kibito that it's not perfected, it drains a lot of stamina from him, but he still has enough stamina to show Kibito Super Saiyan 2, and that was enough for the two Kais to initiate their plan, where Kaioshin paralyzes Gohan long enough for Spopovich and Yamu to stab the needle within him and drain out his energy. And then Kibito and Kaioshin explain the situation to them, and then the scenario where they follow the two minions back to Babidi's ship happens, and everyone ends up following along. Even Solus decides to join in because he thinks this is probably would require his intervention, but just in case he's still gonna tag along. And they reach Babidi's ship. The amount of energy they took from Gohan, would it be enough to revive Majin Buu? I would say yes. I would say it would be enough because this is a much stronger Gohan that has Super Saiyan 3. Granted, it's the baseline version that's just got achieved recently and isn't nearly as perfected as Goku would have it at this point of time, but yeah, it would be around that ballpark. So yeah, Gohan would be a little bit stronger, and I think that little bit would be enough energy to give to Buu to revive him. And so Babidi, but before the two can actually get that energy to Babidi, though, something new happens. Due to them having a little bit of a faster, sense, they managed to reach Babidi's ship before Spopovich and Yamu can do so. And Gohan, one of the people that decided to follow along, decides to do the smart move here. He fires a sniper shot beam towards the energy vessel that contained enough energy to revive Majin Buu, and basically it gets blown up to smithereens, and Babidi no longer has enough energy to revive Majin Buu. So now he begins to panic. He sends Dabura out to fight everyone, but he gets defeated pretty damn easily. Nobody even turns to stone in this scenario. Dabura just gets wiped out of existence practically immediately. They go inside Babidi's ship. They don't even take turns. They just defeat all the minions. And then Babidi begins to panic. Really begins to panic. And he looks around for someone to possess. Now, the first person he lays his eyes on is Vegeta. There's a little bit of darkness inside of him, and he tries to take possession of Vegeta, but... sorry, Babidi, but your attempt is going to fail because in this timeline, Goku did not die. Vegeta got his feel. He knows Goku's strength and his maximum, and even is able to contend with him and spar with him at any point in time. So this version of Vegeta is content with his position because he can fight Kakarot at any time. He can fight his rival. So Vegeta doesn't necessarily get possessed here, but that doesn't mean nobody gets possessed. I'm putting a small little twist in the scenario here. Babidi decides to observe everyone else, and he notices a little something about her furry friend here. There is a darkness locked deep, deep inside of Solus. He can sense it. Babidi can feel that immense darkness that's just ready to be unleashed, that could be unleashed. But the problem is, Babidi would need to use all of his magic to unleash it. Seeing as he has no other option, Babidi attempts to do such a feat. Now, my explanation for this is one of the souls that, was combined to make Solus, the Prince of Hell, Adam, his soul has a lot of resentment and rage because during his childhood, he was absolutely tortured and brutalized by his mother, Lilith, and shunned by his father, Simon, aka the devil and the demoness, if you're not familiar with the Bible. But regardless, that torment, that festering rage, despite Adam no longer existing and now sort of existing inside of Solus, that resentment and rage is still kind of there. It's kind of festering. It's like almost a sort of catalyst that needs a reaction to activate. So Babidi decides to act upon this opportunity. He uses all of his magic to bring that darkness out of Solus. It's more magic than he honestly has to give. It almost ends up killing him in the process, but he manages. There's no M that appears on his forehead. Solus just clutches his head in agony as he feels an immense rage start to burn inside of him. His eyes go red, and his sclera turn pitch black as a black wing, single black wing, sprouts from behind him, leathery in texture, as Solus's demon form has been unleashed. This demon form of Solus, power level wise, is equivalent to Vegito at full power. The Z Fighters stand no chance against this new threat. The unleashed darkness within Solus is wild and rampant, but at the same time, it's tame. It's surprisingly not attacking. Everyone is shocked and fearful at their friend just turning into this beast. This violent, demonic beast that doesn't seem to be doing anything. They don't know why, but They're just not. But regardless of the situation, the moment this power was unleashed, Babidi had enough energy to revive Boo. So that's what happened. Using what was left of his magic, Babidi revived Boo. The egg within the spaceship hatched, and Boo emerges. The fat, tubby version of Boo, nonetheless, but still Boo. He emerges out the spaceship, and Babidi cackles in victory. As he exits the spaceship with Boo alongside him, and Kaioshin is in disbelief. He's this is all over. They're at a loss now. They've got this really powerful demon to deal with, and now Majin Buu. But then Kaioshin looks over back to Solus and still notices he isn't really doing anything. And then Babidi just chuckles, sees that the new minion he created isn't really conscious, so instead he tries to just order Boo to get rid of him. And the moment that Boo has the intention to kill or deal with Solus, Boo is instantly disintegrated. Solus appears right behind him and sends an energy blast strong enough to not only decimate Boo, but kill Babidi at the same time. They are both taken off guard as there is not a single fragment of Boo left, or even Babidi for that matter. The two have been instantly incinerated. And everyone is left shocked. They couldn't even comprehend that Boo was dealt that quickly. And they couldn't even see Solus move. It's like he instantly teleported right behind Majin Buu. Faster than they could even perceive. And they are all in fear. Even Vegeta is terrified. They can't even recognize Solus anymore. It's almost like he's a sort of machine that only turned on because it felt like it was threatened. And then it all made sense because he was threatened. They realized it instantly that this version of Solus only acts on impulse, only acts when it feels threatened, almost like it really is just a mindless beast that's just acting on instinct alone. And due to that information, they realize that as long as Solus doesn't perceive them as a threat, they'll be just fine. As long as they don't have the intention to attack, they won't get hurt, they won't get obliterated for that matter. And so now the Majin Buu arc, it completely just gets entirely skipped, or I guess replaced on this kind of matter, because now they have a new threat to deal with, Demon Form Solus. And everyone decides what to do with him because he's just floating there. He's just mindless. He's just inactive. Almost as if he's in a trance of sorts. And this gives Kibito and Kaioshin an idea. Since this being is essentially in a comatose state, perchance, they decide it might be best to train up Goku and Gohan. They give the offer for the Saiyans to train on their planet. Vegeta turns it down because he would rather train on his own right now. So the Goku and Gohan accept begrudgingly, and the two Kais take the two Saiyans and Solus over to the world of Kaioshin, where they train with the Z Sword. And after a while of training, the Z Sword breaks because of the whole scene with Kachin, seeing if the sword can slice through it. And Elder Kai is released from the sword, and the moment he makes his presence known, and he explains that he was sealed in the sword. But then Elder Kai looks over at Solus, who's still in his demon form and still mindless, seemingly. Looks over them and notices the immense demonic power exuding from him, but also notices a softer side due to his basically almost infinite wisdom. Eldekai is able to piece things that the others normally wouldn't have been able to piece together because he has information they don't. Elder Kai explains that there's only been one kind of species, one kind of entity that has able to have such power. Not only is there a demonic nature within that's exuding outwards now, but inside there's an angelic side as well. Elder Kai vocalizes that this is only seen within a certain subspecies of gods, the Nephilim. Gods who basically were the epiphany of combined demon and angelic power. And this completely shocks Goku, Gohan, and the two Kais. It's like, they finally now begin to understand that Solus isn't immortal, he's a god. And a demigod at that fact. Like, maybe even more than a demigod, who knows? They don't exactly know the limits of a Nephilim. In fact, Elkai's only heard about them from myths and legends of the ancient book. And this kind of freaks out Gohan and Goku a little bit. Goku seems a little more excited because he thinks Solus could potentially be a new rival since he's so powerful. But then again, that darkness, that demonic side could potentially be dangerous. So Elder Kai decides to propose to unlock their potential, which Goku, he denies the proposal, but Gohan thinks, why not at least do the ritual on him? So that happens as canon. Gohan gets the ritual done on him, his potential gets unlocked, and he gains the Mystic Form, which naturally has a variant of Super Saiyan 3 without the overloading stamina drain. Which is honestly probably kind of broken now that I think about it. It's basically he gets Super Saiyan 3 without the stamina drain. But regardless, they still kind of have to deal with Solus, and the first thing that Elder Kai does propose is maybe a fusion could subdue. It's quite possible, and it wouldn't be permanent, but they could probably subdue him with a fusion. And it's like, Goku says, hold on a minute, what if we just let him drain himself out? Like, I'm sure this demonic form of him will run out of energy eventually, right? And Elder Kai thinks on it for a moment. It's like, maybe you're right. I mean, he doesn't really seem to be attacking right now, so I have a feeling he only acts on instinct. I'm sure you've all noticed that as well. And then, I guess the rest of the arc just goes on naturally. And Goku and Gohan continue training on the Supreme Kaioshin world, well, everything on Earth just happens as normal. Up until we kind of zoom out a little bit. We now pan over the scene to the world of destruction, where Beerus and Whis lie. Beerus was having one hell of a nightmare. There was this giant, formless entity that had such great power that Beerus couldn't even fathom to touch it. Anytime he tried, the entity eviscerated him and started the nightmare all over again. And this scene kept going on and on and on until Beerus finally woke up from the nightmare. And beside him was Whis. Whis was incredibly worried. He noticed the distressed state that his god of destruction was in, and he asked him calmly, what was going on? Did you have a premonition of sorts? You rarely have any nightmares at all. And Beerus tells Whis what he dreamt of, and Whis is like, oh my. Maybe it is the stress getting to you. After all, you really haven't gotten your way in quite a while. Maybe that's getting to your psyche somehow. Maybe you should relax for a little bit. Maybe tone down your harshness a little. Beerus immediately just doesn't like the idea and turns over to the Oracle Fish and saying, hey, when am I supposed to wake up again? The Oracle Fish just tells him that he kind of woke up at the right time, actually. Because the Oracle Fish was going to wake him up regardless and tell him about the Super Saiyan God. And Beerus is immediately intrigued, forgetting about the little nightmare he had, because this is more important. Super Saiyan God, you say? And then, like, yep, you can ask your little angel friend there. I'm sure he has a few things to tell you. And then Beerus turns over to Whis, and Whis confirms that a Saiyan actually managed to defeat Frieza a long time ago. And currently, that very Saiyan is on the world of the Kaioshins. Beerus, hearing this, is immediately intrigued and asks Whis to take him there immediately. Now, if you haven't realized, this is way before Bulma's birthday party, so Beerus in this scenario woke up a little bit early, maybe like a few months early, give or take. But regardless, they make their way to the realm of the Kaioshin, and the Supreme Kai notices this instantly and does warn the two Saiyans on his world that Beerus, the god of destruction for this universe, is coming, and Goku is excited, Gohan more so nervous. But they decide to just wait it out. And so Beerus and Whis arrive on the world of the Kaioshin, and the two gods immediately notice something else. They see the two Saiyans, yes, but then there was another presence there. They look over towards them and see the still in demon form Solus, who is still standing there menacingly. Beerus immediately senses something off. He turns over to Kaioshin and asks him who this is. And also notices old Kai was free from the Z-Sword, but decides to ignore it because this is a more important situation. Kaioshin is trying to tell Beerus the situation, but Whis decides to interrupt because Whis can sense what Solus really is. And this is very interesting. A Nephilim within this multiverse. This hasn't been recorded in ever, he thinks. He believes he needs to send this information to his superior, his father, the Grand Priest. But regardless, they were here for a different reason, and which reminds Beerus, he asks the two Saiyans if they know about the Super Saiyan God. Goku and Gohan just tell him no. The only thing they know of is Super Saiyan, and that's it. Nothing really to do with a god. But then Old Kai pipes up a little bit. He does say that he knows of the legend since he has read a few books from time to time during his young days. And he has read little bits from the Book of Namekian. And he does know that the Super Saiyan God is technically a ritual of sorts that's only possible due to the wandering spirit of Yamoshi. But if they want some more information, they could summon Shenron, which they do end up doing. They summon Shenron, get the whole spiel that 6 sands are needed. They really only have 5, but they learn Vidal is pregnant, so they decide to let her in on the ritual, and the person they decide to make the Super Saiyan God is, in fact, Goku as the original timeline. Originally, I did want this to be Gohan, but I feel like if I just kept it as Goku, it wouldn't really make that much of a difference. No, there is still a change that does happen. The moment Goku attains the God transformation, demon form Solus awakens. He stirs slightly and walks up to the newly transformed Goku, who stares upon him with a mixture of confusion and disbelief. But he can see that look in his eyes. He can see that Solus isn't looking at a threat, he's looking at a rival. And so, the battle isn't Goku versus Beerus this time around. It's Goku versus Demon Form Solus. Now, mind you, that the power level gap is immense, but I do want to state one thing. Since this is Demon Force Solus, he doesn't grow from fighting. In fact, his power level remains the same no matter how many times he trains in this form. It's only his base form that grows in power. And the other forms are just multiplications of said power. This is another way I decided to kind of nerf him a little bit. I felt like it was a good thing to do, that because if the other forms also had percentage-based scaling, Solus would probably already be a boundless entity by now. Not even joking. He would likely be a boundless level entity in his demon form if it had percentage-based scaling as well. So I decided to just remove the power scaling mechanic for his alternate forms and just kept it in his base form because it made more sense that way. But regardless of the situation, we have a Super Saiyan God level fighter versus a Buu Arc Vegito level power. And you might honestly think that, well, obviously Goku is going to win in this fight. And you would be technically correct there, if that wasn't for Solus's special ability. You see, the Prince of Hell Adam had spatial magic as his hidden ability. Now, this kind of magic wasn't exactly spatial travel. He wasn't able to go from one dimension to the next. But one thing it did allow the prince to do was allow him to instantly teleport to a certain location if he so desired. Now, in the canonical storyline, Adam never really used this power. He wasn't even aware it even existed in the first place. Neither was Evelyn with her time-based magic, sort of. She kinda did eventually learn about it, but decided to never really use it. But regardless of those facts, yeah, Demon Form Solus, his ability is instant teleportation. Now, Hyper, isn't this basically just instant transmission? No, it is not. It is different. The difference between instant transmission and this ability is that instant teleportation doesn't require Demon Form Solace to lock onto a power source. He just needs to know where he needs to go, and he can instantly teleport to that area. It's essentially an advanced form of instant transmission, if I want to really put it bluntly. So the fight begins, and the moment Goku tries to attack Demon Form Solus, he instantly teleports right behind him to where his blind spot is. And Goku tries to immediately counter this, but every single time Goku tries to land an attack, Solus is right where his blind spot is and attacks back. And this basically is a battle of raw strength versus technique. Now, honestly, I wrote this for a very specific reason, because personally I believe we don't have enough moments like this in anime. It's really sad. Most of the anime I have watched, when it comes to battles, it's usually raw strength versus raw strength, or technique versus technique, or speed versus speed. It's not really. It's not really one versus stone wall versus stone versus paper rock or anything like that. No. So I wanted to have this fight be a little bit different, because honestly I wish we would have more fight scenes where it's technique versus raw strength. Because personally, in my opinion, if you have superior technique, power levels don't really matter as long as you're able to catch your opponent off guard. Even if they are technically faster than you by leagues and margins, if you have a better technique, you should be able to handle yourself in a fight. So that's what I went with this. So now Goku has to contend with a Demon Form Solus that is arguably 1,000 times weaker, but has an ability or technique that catches him off guard, and he has to deal with this instant teleportation ability. He has to figure out a way to counter it, and he does just that. The moment Solus teleports behind him, Goku is ready to launch a secondary attack the instant he knows Solus will be in his blind spot. And that attack alone causes Solus to be put out of submission, rendering him back to his base form and now unconscious. It was a very quick fight, and Beerus was impressed that Goku managed to figure out how to counter this really powerful ability that Solus had. And instead of wanting to fight him immediately, Beerus just congratulates Goku on this improvement and decides he's not gonna really destroy Earth or anything like that. I mean, the food is really good and really tempting, so he decides that he's just gonna let everything be. So now we skip forward to Bulma's birthday party, where it goes basically normal. Beerus even attends the party along with Whis, and manages to have some pudding since we don't have Majin Buu in this scenario. He got eviscerated, deleted, absolutely boondoggled. So, Beerus enjoys a nice meal. And after the whole birthday party, invites Goku and Vegeta, surprisingly, to come to his planet. Now, the reason he decides to invite Vegeta is because he believes the same thing Whis does. In the sense that where if he has Vegeta, if he just only has Goku there, then there won't really be much of anyone to look out for a little furry friend here. So he decides to also bring Vegeta along because Vegeta not only enticed him with ramen, but also Beerus believes that Vegeta, if he trains with Goku, they'll get stronger, but also there just in case Solus, goes back into his demon form again. So they bring Goku, Vegeta, and Solus over to Beerus' planet, and Goku and Vegeta train. Vegeta manages to obtain Super Saiyan God on his own, and everything pans out naturally. Now, before we get to the events of the Resurrection Frieza arc, we have a sub-mini arc to go through. During Goku and Vegeta's training, Solus manages to wake up from his comatose state. And the moment he does, Beerus and Whis instantly greet him and ask him who he is. Solus just replies with the usual spiel because he's kinda really fed up of explaining this, but figures he might as well do so, and he just tells Beerus and Whis that he doesn't really know. He only remembers what his name is, and that's pretty much it. Whis notes this down, even uses his staff to check, and Solus is telling the truth. And Whis relays this to Beerus, who thinks on it, and decides they might as well tell him who he really is. And Beerus straight up does that. Beerus and Whis tell Solus what he actually is, that he's a Nephilim from a completely different multiverse. Now, they only really figured this out after a little bit of diving. Even talking to the Grand Priest about it. And the Grand Priest, he wanted to see Solus. And Whis explains that to him. That they're going to go to the Palace of Zeno to meet with not only the Grand Priest, but Zeno himself. To decide what they should do with him. And reluctantly, Solus goes with them to the Grand Palace of Zeno, where he meets the Grand Priest Daishinkan for the first time. And Daishinkan can immediately tell that Solus is a Nephilim. Not only just a Nephilim, but a Nephilim from a different multiverse. He explains that he's only really seen a Nephilim once in his entire lifetime, and it was long before Zeno was the Omni King. Even Zeno was a little serious. He wasn't his normal childish outlook. He was serious. His tone was more befitting of an Omni King, and Zeno even says that he actually has met Solus once before, a very long time ago. During one of the omniversal meetings he's had with the other Omnigods, he got in touch with a little chronicler of sorts who explained that they'll be sending a little surprise to his multiverse kind of soon as a sort of experiment. And Zeno kind of honestly forgot about the whole ordeal because, you know, he didn't really mind it at first. I mean, yeah, sure, they can go ahead. If this is for an experiment, then he'll just let it slide. And Zeno kind of completely forgot about it. And he explains this to Solus that this isn't his original multiverse. He was brought here as a sort of experiment to see how he would nurture and grow in a completely different world. And Solus is taken aback by this and asks, what is his purpose exactly? Because that's the one thing he wants to know the most. It's the one thing he's been wondering ever since he first woke up, and Zeno tells him bluntly what his purpose is. He tells Solus that his purpose is to be the epitome of balance itself, that he is balance incarnate, and that his purpose is to ensure the balance of reality itself. And he first must do that by balancing out his own soul. Zeno knows his darkness was recently unleashed. Even if it was out of his own volition, it was still unleashed. And Zeno tells him if he doesn't learn to control this darkness, then he could doom reality itself as a whole. And Solus, he accepts this. He realizes this, and now he finally understands. He then tells them what happened during that moment. How he was back in that void he first initially spawned within. How it was nothing but pitch darkness on one side and a bright light on the other. But this time around, the void was just darkness. He could hear voices but didn't know who they belonged to. He never heard them before. Then he heard something about a ritual of sorts, and then the moment those voices faded away, he saw the world for the first time. He saw the lookout, and he explains the feelings he had during those moments where he was afraid, he was wondering, and now he finally knows who he is. And Zeno, he's happy about this. And it's like, he tells Solus he's welcome to stay in this multiverse for as long as he wants, but he knows it won't be too long, and that he'll probably be sent back to his original multiverse. Maybe kinda pretty soon, actually. Who knows? And so Solus bows, nods his head, and he wishes the Omni King farewell. And the moment he exits out the palace, the events of the Resurrection F saga have started. The Dragon Balls were gathered by the army of Frieza, and he was wished back to life. And Frieza, he trained for the same amount. The events kind of went the same. The only real stark difference is Beerus and Whis were away for a couple of days, so Goku and Vegeta didn't train too much, but they still have Super Saiyan God. They don't quite have Blue just yet, but they're around that same kind of power level because Solus is still a factor and they are trying to improve themselves to catch up. So now, the two Saiyans have Super Saiyan God, no Blue, but again, They already are on that kind of power scaling, so they should still be able to handle Frieza pretty well. And so Frieza arrives on Earth, and Goku and Vegeta, they're already there since they figure they might as well go back. And Goku, he was a little. He wanted to check in on the others, so they decided to take a break from training. And they arrived kind of at the perfect time. They arrived right when Frieza has decided to bring his army to the planet. And he sends his soldiers out, which honestly, every single one of them gets taken out pretty dang easily. You have the moment where Gohan drops his guard and gets shot by Tagamo, or whatever that alien's name is, I forgot. But now we get to the point where Vegeta and Goku decide they want to fight Frieza. Now, they don't decide to do the rock, paper, scissors thing. Goku decides that Vegeta should take on Frieza because he knows Vegeta hasn't really necessarily fought Frieza as much. And Vegeta appreciates Goku for the gesture, so he goes ahead and takes it. So unlike the original, Vegeta is the one to start out fighting Frieza in his golden form. So it's Golden Frieza versus a Super Saiyan God Vegeta that's roughly around the levels of Super Saiyan Blue. Give or take, maybe a little bit weaker, maybe a little bit stronger, but roughly around the area. And the fight goes on and on and on until the point where Vegeta decides he's had enough playtime and decides to let Goku have his turn for once. Because, you know, he's had his fill. So he decides to let Goku finish Frieza off. And Frieza's, at this point in time, is exhausted. And Goku notices this. So he decides to just try to end Frieza off. And he lands a punch on Frieza's gut that sends him all the way back to his final form. And Frieza starts to get really desperate now. Incredibly desperate, even. And in his mind, he knows he can't defeat these Saiyans. So he decides one thing and one thing only. He needs to destroy this planet. But the moment he has the intentions to destroy the planet, it's already game over for Frieza because a certain little someone decides to show up the moment that happens. Solus appears. He's right in front of Frieza, and Frieza is caught off guard. He doesn't know who this individual is before he can ask. He is immediately incinerated by a giant ki blast that disintegrates him to dust. No, this isn't a Hakai, perhaps it's just a ki blast that obliterates Frieza completely. But, you know, I feel like Frieza is weak enough to be killed by Solus at this point. Because Solus is still weaker than Vegeta and Goku, but around the ballpark of being stronger than Vegito in his base form in the Buu Saga. So I feel like he could still kill Frieza. But regardless, Solus revealing that he has mastered his instant teleportation ability, since because of Solus's mechanics, any technique he learns, even if it's in another form, is immediately applied to his base form. So since he had that instant teleportation in his demon form, he can do that in his base form now, which is actually really helpful, and was the reason he's able to kill Frieza so suddenly. And the moment he does, everyone is taken back because Mainly Goku and Vegeta are taken aback because they just saw Solus immediately teleport and destroy Frieza. And Goku, thanks him for the quick little pick me up there. And he knows that Frieza was about to destroy the Earth, and Goku realizes he got cocky again and apologizes to Solus, who just shrugs it off, saying, it's fine. You can be you. I've long accepted the fact that you'll always just be you. And so Goku just smiles and chuckles it off and just once again thanks Solus for helping him out. So Solus aside, says it's no big deal, and then just heads off to a random location. He doesn't teleport to Beerus's world, perhaps. He just goes off and does his own thing. And so the events of the Frieza arc basically moderately go the same, minus the ending. So I think Goku and Vegeta go back to training up until the Universe 7 versus 6 arc, where Champa arrives. And the moment he arrives in Universe 7, the one person that is there in front of him is none other than Solus, who asks the god of destruction why he's here. And so I can sense your dark intent, but regardless, I have no word of interfering, so I'm just going to ask, why are you here? And Solus just straight up tells, Champa just straight up tells Solus to back off, and then he's here to just collect a few things. Solus can see through the lies, but decides, this thing will probably just sort out by itself. And it kind of does because Beerus senses this and intervenes. And so Champa then proposes the tournament to Beerus, and reluctantly he agrees to it. The team is assembled. It's practically the same as the original. And by the time the tournament rolls around, I think that Goku and Vegeta would have Super Saiyan Blue at this point. Which, going off my previous power scaling, yeah, they would be a step above the normal. So the Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta at this point of time would be just about as powerful as Evolution and Blue Kaioken, roughly. So the tournament would be a little bit more of a steam wash this turn around, but moderately it would roughly go around the same. The only difference is that Zeno doesn't arrive, because Zeno isn't interested in, the whole tournament deal and having fun, because he knows Solus is here, so he has to put on a little bit of a more mature act, just in case the higher-ups are watching how he reacts, what he's doing, and stuff like that. So Zeno's a little bit more cautious this time around, because he knows that if he angers the higher-ups, he is going to get his ass whooped and handed to him. So he decides to be quiet, and softly he knows Solus in his disposition, and he thinks to himself that maybe if given time, the universes can grow a little bit. He sees that happening with Solus in Universe 7. You can see that the universe is growing slowly, but surely. Maybe he should let the universes prosper just a little bit more before deciding on any harsh judgment. So the turn of the power doesn't necessarily happen, but Zeno still does decide to meet Goku because, Zeno's omniscient, he knows everything that will happen, and he knows he'll be good friends with Goku. So that still plays out the same. And then we pan out to Universe 10 with Zamasu, who has watched the entire thing happen on GodTube. Now, will the Goku Black Arc happen realistically? I would personally say no. My reason being is since Solus can now sense an intention, the moment anyone thinks of, threatening the balance or any of that kind of deal, I believe Solus would be on that shit like instantly. And the moment before Zamasu can even think of killing his teacher, Solus would just be there to instantly obliterate him, regardless of intent. So maybe Zamasu would think not to really act that much, or maybe perhaps seeing his hateful disposition, Gowasu might decide to show Zamasu the lighter side of mortals. So you might think, maybe I showed Zamasu the wrong side of mortals. Maybe I should show him something else. And so that's what he decides to do a little bit down the road. He apologizes to Zamasu, saying, I believe I might have shown you mortals who might take a while to change. So, how about we go visit a different kind of planet? Maybe a difference, a true difference. He decides to show Zamasu a planet where the inhabitants of it in the past were kind of like the barbarians, a little bit like cavemen, a little bit. But then he shows Zamasu the future version of that planet, and it's a whole lot better than what happened to the barbarians. The civilians on the planet are more civilized, are more structured. He then tells Goku that the Earth in Universe 7 used to be a desolate land filled with only dinosaurs. But if you've seen it now harbors a sand who's reached godhood, which tells you that mortals can achieve great things if given enough time to prosper. And Zamasu, he takes this information to heart, and his worldview kind of changes a little. He sees the potential, and he's the prosperity, the real things about the universe. But he's still conflicted in a sense, and tells Gowasu that he directly asks his teacher, then why do mortals try to achieve godhood? And Gowasu decides to tell Zamasu about the cycle of the universe. How their god of destruction, Rumshi, used to be mortal as well, before he got his position as god of destruction. It's mortals that have this potential, that have the capacity to continue the cycle of balance. And that is why gods of destruction exist, and that's why mortals still continue to exist, because without mortals, we wouldn't have another god of destruction. It would just be the same one running his job 24/7. And that's not exactly healthy. New gods of destruction are often needed, such as new supreme kais are often needed. And this changes Zamasu's outlook quite a lot. He begins to understand that lesson that's in a different universe and timeline. A more omniscient Goku taught to him when he was down. If you don't know what I'm referring to, I'm talking about the Masako X side of things. But regardless, those same teachings get taught to this version of Zamasu, so therefore, I believe the Goku Black Arc wouldn't really happen at all. Trunks' timeline would remain safe and secure, and nothing new would really go on. So then I guess, with that arc completely skipped, let's go on to the next arc, which I think theoretically we wouldn't have a tournament of power at all. Excuse me. Instead, let's skip forward to the Moro arc. Now, realistically, would the Moro arc happen? I would again say no. It would not happen at all. Again, Solus exists. He would know if there's any intent to imbalance the universe or destroy things, so likely he would get rid of Mortal within an instant. That whole saga wouldn't really pan out the way it does normally. And what about the Broly movie? I'm thinking about the Broly movie, and would it happen? Well, since Frieza wasn't brought for the Tournament of Power, he would still be dead. He would still be in hell. He wouldn't be revived, so I don't think the Broly movie wouldn't really happen at all. And that's mostly because Frieza's still dead. He's still in hell. So it wouldn't really happen that much. So the next feasible arc would just be the Granola arc. Now, realistically, if Granola wished to be the strongest in the universe, he would shrivel up into an old man and be turned into dust. Because, well, the people that are the strongest right now is a Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku and a Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta that roughly have around the same power of Omen Ultra Instinct, I would say. Roughly, maybe a little bit lower, but around the ballpark. Not exactly, but not quite there as well. And honestly, if Granola tried to wish for that kind of power, he probably wouldn't shrivel up into an old man, but again, we have Solus in this situation who would see those attentions, but he wouldn't necessarily get rid of Granola. He would just tell him what's going on, that he's being lied to, he's being manipulated. And so that arc, the Granola arc, wouldn't really go on. Honestly, Solus would probably grab Goku and Vegeta and have them deal with the situation, because they still could deal with it. And they could still manage to deal with it. And there would be no wish to make someone the strongest in this kind of a scenario, because the Dragon Balls wouldn't really be used. Like, Solus would prevent them from being used. And then now we have the final arc, or at least the final one that I'm aware of, Black Frieza. Well, Frieza's dead, so, well, yeah, that wouldn't really happen. So I'm trying to think of a way to continue this without really making it boring. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of retconning here. I'm going to say, theoretically, the Frieza Force finds another set of Dragon Balls and manages to wish their Lord back to life Again, hypothetically, even if Frieza trained for an entire year, I don't think that Black Frieza would stand a chance. If we're talking about manga level, then yeah, he would be decimating, but again, we're talking about intention here, and Solus at this point is on the level of current Goku and Vegeta in his base form, and let's not talk about his demon form because yes, by this point of time, he's gained control over it. He can access it whenever he wishes, and that alone is basically fusion level of power. It's like if Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego Vegeta fused within the manga. It's like that level of power. If we got Ultra Vegeta level of power within Solus, it would be too much for Black Frieza. Most likely, but realistically, maybe he would have a little bit of trouble with Frieza, but hypothetically, I don't think Solus would allow Frieza to even train anymore. Hell, I don't think he would even allow him to exist anymore. And blatantly, he would just get Beerus to, like, straight up erase him or something like that. Regardless of how you want to put it, I think this is the hypothetical end of this what if. Honestly, at this point in time, I think Solus would be transported back to his original world via the Chronicler, who put him here in the first place, and the Chronicler would just make it to where everyone forgets that Solus even existed in the first place. He would return everything back to its original standpoint via narrator-esque magic, and everything would just go back to original. So it's just like basically the powers of a writer would undo the entire what if ever happening in the first place. And that's essentially what I think would happen if Solus entered the Dragon Ball multiverse. Now, honestly, again, the manga isn't entirely completed from my experience and understanding, so it's likely I could probably continue this if I wanted to. How I could even make brand new arcs if I really wanted to. I could probably tie this into Dragon Ball Heroes as well, but I don't know the entire storyline of Dragon Ball Heroes, so I'm not going to touch that realm whatsoever. Once again, if you're interested in learning Solus's entire storyline and how his canonical story goes, I might consider making a video or at least a story for everyone to read. But regardless of the choices, I hope you enjoyed. It is optional to like and subscribe if you want to. I don't really take this seriously. I also hope the mic quality has been good. Please excuse the random moments when I'm a little bit sniffly. In between this entire recording session, I gave myself allergies by accident, which is very fun to manage. But regardless, I still hope you guys enjoyed. And if you like this what if, I might try to make another one. Or just a different video style, I'll try to do that. But regardless, I hope you once again enjoyed, and yeah, that's the end of the what if story. Honestly, in my personal opinion, it probably didn't pan out well, but maybe I'm just defamating myself a bit too much. Regardless, have a nice day. Oh, hope you do well if you're having a bad day. And just overall, try to believe every day is a good vibe. That's all we need is good vibes.